It was raining the way it does when the sky seems to grieve with you. Soft, constant, like it knows something you don't. I was on the second shelf of the linen closet, sorting pillowcases we never used anymore, when my phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. I almost didn't check it. Almost let it be. But some invisible thread tugged at me. That strange pull we get when something is about to go wrong. I've filed the papers. I think it's time. Please don't call. That was it. 18 years. A marriage. A shared mortgage. Countless dinners. Sleepless nights. Inside jokes and tired rituals. And this was how it ended. With one line that didn't even bother to spell out my name. I blinked, staring at the screen, expecting it to change. Maybe a second message, some clarification, some explanation. But nothing came. The rain kept tapping at the window like it was trying to drown out the silence in my chest. My hands, still smelling faintly of lavender from the sheets, began to tremble. I sat on the edge of the tub and opened the banking app. It wasn't logic guiding me. It was instinct. My breath hitched. 0, 0 in checking, 0 in savings. He had taken it all. My heart didn't break. Not yet. It folded in on itself like paper, soft and stunned. I stood up slowly, walked through the hall like a woman drifting through a museum of her own life. The picture frames on the walls, the trip to Lisbon, our anniversary in Charleston, his parents' 50th. We smiled in all of them. Or I did. The kitchen still smelled of last night's roast. His plate was in the sink, fork resting on the edge like he planned to wash it later. The morning's coffee cup still sat by the window, a faint lipstick stain, mine, curving at the rim. We kissed goodbye that morning. He said, "Don't forget the dry cleaning." That was it. I made my way to the bathroom and turned on the light. My reflection stared back at me. A woman with half-straightened hair, a faded college sweatshirt, and eyes that didn't quite believe what they were seeing. I touched my cheek, unsure who I was looking at. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was gone. Somewhere deep inside, locked away. I knew if I cried now, I'd break. And if I broke, I might not put myself back together again. My wedding ring felt heavy, so I slipped it off. I set it on the edge of the sink next to my perfume bottle, the one he used to say made me smell like summer. I didn't feel like summer. I felt like winter left too long in the dark. I sat on the bathroom floor, knees drawn to my chest, and whispered to no one, "You coward." Not because he left, but because he didn't even say goodbye. He took the money, the security, the marriage. But more than that, he tried to take my dignity. Tried to make me feel disposable, like I was just some account to be closed. But there was a strange kind of fire beneath the numbness. A quiet spark. It didn't roar. It whispered, "Not like this. You don't disappear like this." I didn't know what I would do next. But I knew this wasn't the end of my story. He left thinking he was done with me. He had no idea what he just started. People like to ask how it started, how you end up losing yourself in a marriage that looks so ordinary from the outside. The truth is, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow, quiet forgetting. We met in college. He was the golden boy, ambitious, magnetic, the kind of man who lit up a room and made you feel lucky just to stand beside him. I was quieter, the girl who always showed up 5 minutes early to class and sat in the second row. He said he liked that I listened more. Then I spoke. He called me too sensitive the night I cried over a stray cat hit by a car. He said I was too idealistic when I got excited about a nonprofit job offer. But then he'd cut my face and say, "That's why I'll protect you. The world's too harsh for someone like you." And I believed him. I wanted to. I thought, love was compromise, and maybe it is. But I mistook compromise for disappearance. When he got a job offer out of state, I turned down mine. We moved into a one-bedroom apartment with beige walls and a broken heater, and I told myself it was the start of something real, something strong. The first few years were good, or good enough. I worked 2 part-time jobs while he took night classes. We made spaghetti 3 times a week and split rent to the dollar. He'd pull me close on cold mornings and whisper, "We're building something," and I held on to that like a prayer. But little cracks started to show. He got a promotion, then another. Then came late nights and business trips, conference calls on weekends, cold dinners left untouched on the stove. He was always busy, always tired, always trying to provide, and I was always waiting. I asked about children once, maybe a year after we bought the townhouse. We were standing in the kitchen, and I brought it up gently, thinking maybe now was the time. He looked up from his phone and said, "Not now. I can't think about diapers when I'm pitching a merger next week." I didn't bring it up again. And slowly I stopped thinking about it too. Instead, I poured myself into keeping things running, managing the house, paying bills, cooking meals, remembering birthdays. I learned how to read his moods, when to speak, and when to stay quiet. I swallowed my hurt like medicine, convinced it would make me stronger. He stopped saying thank you. He stopped asking how my day was. Eventually, he stopped seeing me altogether, and still, I blame myself. Maybe I wasn't fun enough. Maybe I let myself go. Maybe I should have fought harder to keep things exciting. So I tried. New clothes, new recipes, even couples therapy, brochures tucked into his briefcase. He laughed when he found them. "Therapy?" he said, shaking his head. "What could we possibly need therapy for?" I stopped calling my best friend Sarah, after she asked me too many times if I was really happy. My mother's voice on the phone turned sharp. "You always were afraid of being alone, sweetheart. But are you sure this is better?" I told them I was fine, that we were just going through a busy season. But truthfully, I didn't know what fine meant anymore. I only knew how to keep going. There was a perfume I used to wear. He bought it, for me on our 5th anniversary. Jasmine and sandalwood, soft and warm. He said it smelled like how I made him feel. I wore it every day for years. One morning I put it on and walked past him in the hallway. He didn't even look up from his phone, so I stopped wearing it. And he never noticed. I started to disappear. Looking back now, I realized the woman I became wasn't built in a day. She was carved slowly, carefully, into someone smaller, more palatable, easier to ignore. And when that text came, when he ended our life with a single sentence, it wasn't the moment I lost everything. It was the moment I woke up and realized I'd already lost myself. I still remember the hum of the engine as I sat in the bank parking lot, clutching my purse like a lifeline. The sky was overcast again. Gray, heavy, the kind of light that makes everything feel muted. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't slept. But I kept telling myself, "This is just money. You'll figure it out." I walked up to the counter and gave them my name. The woman behind the glass smiled politely, typed something into her screen, and then frowned. "I'm sorry," she said. "You've been removed from the account." "Last week, actually." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Removed. Like I was never there. Like I was some mistake he'd corrected. I asked for a printout. Something. Anything. She shook her head. "We can't legally provide that. You're not listed anymore." I thanked her. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Then I walked out, past the coffee machine in the lobby, past the wall of community flyers, past a little boy trying to press the elevator button with his foot. And then I drove home. Or what used to be home. The moment I pulled into the driveway, I knew. The flowers I planted in the spring were gone. The ceramic wind chime that used to hang by the porch. Gone. There was a new doormat, one I didn't recognize. And taped to the door was a notice from the HOA about recent changes to property occupancy. I reached for my key anyway. It didn't fit. I jiggled it, tried again, harder, like somehow brute force would open the door to my old life. But the lock had changed, and so had everything else. Across the street, Mrs. Dalton, our retired neighbor, was watering her begonias. She looked up and froze, the hose still running. I caught her eye. She gave me a sad little wave. Pity. I could see it from across the lawn. I was now a story she'd whisper over tea. I got back in the car and just sat. For hours. I couldn't feel my hands, my legs, my face. It was like my whole body had gone underwater. I opened my phone and pulled up his Instagram. The profile was public. There he was, smiling on a rooftop patio, city skyline in the background, wine glass in hand. Her head on his shoulder, young, blonde, too perfect to be real. They were tagged at the Monroe Residences, luxury, high-rise, modern. He hadn't just moved on, he'd upgraded. The post was from last night. I wanted to scream, but the sound got caught in my throat. So instead, I did what I always did. I stayed quiet, swallowed it, folded the pain neatly inside myself like an old love letter too shameful to throw away. A day later, a letter from his lawyer arrived at the motel. I hadn't even told anyone where I was staying. How did he find me? This notice serves to inform you that the storage unit under the name Ms., my name, must be vacated within 5 business days. Any items remaining beyond this period will be considered abandoned. Abandoned. That word stuck to my ribs like glue. No mention of alimony. No offer of negotiation. No line of regret. Just paperwork. I stared at the letter until the words blurred. Then I dropped it on the motel carpet and collapsed onto the scratchy comforter. My body gave out. I cried harder than I ever had. Ugly, heaving sobs that made my ribs ache. It wasn't just about the money, or the house, or the woman. It was the erasure. He had rewritten our story like I was a typo. I lay there for hours, surrounded by cardboard boxes stacked at the foot of the bed. They held what was left of me: wedding china, a few photo albums, an old university sweatshirt he used to wear when he was sick, and one tiny shoebox marked personal. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, my wedding perfume, half full, the scent still sharp and sweet. A dried flower from our first anniversary dinner. A photo of us on our wedding day. He was looking at me like I was the only thing that mattered. I was laughing, veil blowing in the wind. I stared at it for a long time, then I tore it. Not in a burst of anger, but slowly, cleanly, like a ritual, like shedding a second skin. The rip echoed louder than I expected. One half, I folded neatly and slid back into the box. My face, still smiling. The other half, his, went into the trash. When the sun rose the next morning, it found me sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a motel blanket, staring out the window. Something in me had shifted. I wasn't whole. Not yet. But I wasn't buried either. Not anymore. I didn't pack a bag with purpose. I just grabbed what was left of me. Clothes, that shoebox of keepsakes, a half-empty bottle of water, and drove. There wasn't a destination, only distance. I needed miles between me and the life that had vanished like smoke. The road was my only clarity. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't play music. I just drove, letting the low hum of tires on highway lull something raw inside me. My reflection, in the rear view, looked older somehow. Or maybe just honest for the first time. I crossed 2 state lines before I stopped. A coastal town with a crooked little sign that read, Marion Bay, where the shore whispers back. It sounded like something from a poem. I followed the scent of salt water until the ocean came into view. Gray-blue and endless, just like I needed. I found the room above the bookshop on a whim. The woman who ran it was short, wide-hipped, with silver curls that framed her sun-kissed face. She wore a lavender cardigan and smelled like cinnamon and ink. "You look like someone who needs quiet," she said, without asking my name. She handed me the key and only charged me half. The room was small, bare wood floors, a twin bed, and a window that opened to seagulls and wind. But it was safe. It was mine. That first night, I laid on the thin mattress, listening to the sea through the cracked window, the shoebox on my chest like an anchor. In the mornings, I walked the beach. My feet sank into the cold sand, grounding me. Each wave felt like it carried away something I no longer needed. His voice, his dismissiveness, the house, the bank statement, the locks. I found an old journal in the box. The leather cover was worn, the first page dated 2004. My younger self had dreams. She wrote about opening a gallery, about traveling, about love. I began to write again, slowly at first, as if my hand had to remember how. But soon, the words poured out like I'd been holding them in for years. He took the money, the house, the plans, but he never took my story. I got a job waitressing at the local cafe. It paid little, but it gave me purpose. It gave me rhythm. I poured coffee for fishermen and retirees, learned how to bake scones, and listened to the way small-town people spoke in gentler tones. One afternoon, I met Clara, a local artist who came in every Wednesday for chamomile tea and banana bread. She saw me sketching in my journal and invited me to her studio. I almost declined. The voice in my head, the one trained to ask for permission, still whispered, "You're not an artist. You're just a woman who got left." But I went. Her studio smelled of turpentine and dreams. She handed me a brush without ceremony. "Paint whatever hurts," she said. "Then paint what heals it." I painted my old house. Then I painted it burning. And then I painted the sea. There was another woman at the cafe, Marianne. 40, divorced, fire in her eyes. We swapped stories during slow afternoons, shared silent pain with every refill of sweet tea. "You're not broken," she told me once, tapping the table with her chipped nail. "You're just not finished." Weeks passed. I started saving what little I earned, opened a new checking account, slowly paid off the debts he left in my name. Piece by piece, I reclaimed what he tried to erase. Then came the email. I hadn't checked my old account in months, but something told me to. It was from a name I recognized. His assistant, Kelsey. A woman I'd met twice, always polite, always tense around me. "Hi, I'm sorry. I don't want to get involved, but I can't stay quiet. You didn't deserve this." Attached are copies of all the transactions he made in your name. He didn't know I had them saved separately. Do what you need to do, and good luck. I stared at the screen, breath caught. Attached were spreadsheets, scanned documents, records of wire transfers, and copies of correspondence. My name was on things I never signed. His girlfriend's rent had been paid from our joint business account. There were loans taken under my SSN. He had built an empire on my blind trust. The fire I thought had dimmed reignited. This wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. I printed every file, labeled each folder, highlighted dates, every signature he forged, every lie. My journal entries sat beside them like a witness. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a victim anymore. I saw someone preparing for war. Not with fists, with facts, with truth, and with a calm, relentless kind of rage. Because now I didn't just want peace. I wanted justice. I remember the moment I walked into the legal aid office. It was quiet, sun-drenched, the kind of place that didn't scream justice, but whispered it gently, like a promise. My hands trembled as I clutched the folder of documents Kelsey had sent me. Inside was the rot of his empire: forged signatures, fraudulent loans, hidden transfers, each page a betrayal in ink. The woman who greeted me looked like she'd seen everything and still held space for hope. Her name was Nora. No judgment in her eyes, just focus. She spread the documents across the desk like a battlefield map and began to ask questions. Did you sign this? No. Were you aware of this account? No. Do you have proof of income during this period? I do. For the first time in years, someone believed me. Nora explained the steps. We would file a fraud report. We'd request a financial audit. The forged documents were enough to build a case. It would take time, but we had a chance at reclaiming more than money, a chance at truth. That night, I returned to my little room above the bookshop, sat at the table Clara had lent me, and began to compile everything. I became meticulous. Each receipt was taped to a page, each email printed and annotated. I created a timeline: when he started pulling away, when the accounts were created, when the lies became bolder. I highlighted my name where he used it, circled every date he told me he was just traveling for work. I wasn't just documenting his fraud. I was rewriting my own story, one fact at a time. The woman who once asked for permission was gone. I hired a forensic accountant with what savings I had left, a woman named Julia, who'd been through something similar. She was sharp, direct, and kind in the way survivors are, with quiet urgency. She called me 3 days into the audit. Did you know he listed you as a co-signer on his company's investment property? No, I had no idea. Then you'll love this. He also applied for a loan using your name and forged your signature. I didn't cry. I smiled, not out of happiness, but clarity. I wasn't crazy. I was conned, and I was done being silent. Clara helped me set up a simple website. I called it She Rewrites, a space for women like me, those erased in marriages, gaslit by charmers, defrauded in the name of love. I uploaded my story, start to finish, with scans of the redacted documents. I didn't name him, yet, but I told the truth. Within days, it went viral. Emails poured in. Donations trickled, then flooded. A popular podcast reached out, then a documentary. Producer. Strangers offered their attorneys, their support, their own stories. One woman wrote, "Thank you. I thought I was alone." That message lit something in me. I opened a new business account, filed for an LLC. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. I became the woman I needed a year ago. I no longer wore the ring. I wore strength. The perfume? I dabbed it on my wrist the day I filed the lawsuit. It didn't remind me of him anymore. It reminded me of the girl who believed in something, and the woman who learned to believe in herself. A week later, a letter arrived in a thick, cream-colored envelope. The return address? A federal office. His company was under investigation, and her name, the girlfriend, was on the financial statements too. She'd been receiving direct payments labeled as consulting fees. But she never worked a day. They had built a kingdom of lies on my back. I sealed the final folder, labeled it in bold ink, for court. As I clicked the folder shut, I caught my reflection in the dusty window. This time, I recognized her. This wasn't revenge born of bitterness. It was justice, born of truth. He had taken everything, my money, my marriage, my sense of safety. But now I held everything he tried to hide. I wore the perfume that morning. Not for him. For me. For the woman who sat on a motel bed crying into a shoebox. For the one who walked beaches alone. Who traced her name on old bank statements like she was trying to remember who she used to be. I wore a navy blue suit. Simple, clean lines, nothing flashy. The kind of outfit that didn't beg for respect, but assumed it. Clara had gifted me the earrings. Marianne had driven me to the courthouse. And the folder in my hand? That was everything I'd been collecting for months. My lawyer, Nora, walked beside me like a lighthouse, calm, steady, powerful. She'd filed the complaint last week, but today was something more. Today was the summons. We delivered it to him in person. He was in his glass office, high above the city, his empire humming around him. I saw his secretary flinch when she read the name on the paperwork. Saw him freeze mid-sentence when she passed it to him. His eyes lifted slowly, like he didn't believe it could be me. But it was. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I watched. Him read every line, color draining from his face. There was a tremble in his hand as he reached for his phone. Nora smiled, just barely. "You'll want to read the attachments before you make that call," she said. And then we left. The depositions came next. Emails, recordings, account records. His voice, promising he'd handle it. Her name on multiple payments, shell companies, hidden assets. He tried to bury everything, but we had the ledger, and it was airtight. The story broke in the business journal first, then in a larger outlet. One headline read, "Tech CEO faces fraud allegations from ex-wife. He built it with my name." Another simply said, "The Phoenix wife. How one woman burned down the lies. His accounts were frozen. His investors pulled out. Auditors combed through everything. His carefully built kingdom, shaking." In court I stood. I was calm, poised. My voice didn't shake. I told the truth. Not the sensational version, the real one. The loneliness, the silence, the forged papers, the erasure. I told the story of how I disappeared. Then I told the story of how I came back. He sat just a few feet away, older than I remembered, smaller somehow. He didn't look at me, not really. He looked through me, like he was still trying to figure out how I did it. But I didn't owe him answers. The judge ruled in my favor. Financial restitution, punitive damages, a public acknowledgement of fraud. His attorney muttered something about appeal, but it was weak. Everyone in that room knew. It was over. As I walked out of the courtroom, he followed. "Wait," he called out. "Just wait." I stopped. He looked at me, desperate, unsure. "You really hate me that much?" I tilted my head. "No," I said simply. "I just finally love myself enough." He flinched, and I turned to leave. Outside, the air smelled like spring rain. I walked past the old house. It was up for sale. The shutters were chipped, the garden overgrown. The wind chimes were gone. I didn't stop. I didn't even glance at the porch where we once kissed under Christmas lights. That place held no power over me anymore. I drove back to my home, where the waves met the sky, and the people knew my name not as an echo of his, but as a story of my own. I opened the window, let the sea breeze in, and sat at my little desk. I pulled out a small canvas and my paints. This time, I didn't paint pain. I painted a phoenix. Flames in its wings, light in its eyes. Not rising, flying. I framed it, hung it above my desk, and beneath it, in soft cursive, I wrote the words I once whispered to myself in the dark. You should have never underestimated the quiet one.